Hello, thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. Alexandra Papaioannou. I am a professor of medicine at McMaster University. I'm the executive director of the Geroscience Center for Aging Research. Today, we are delighted to learn about Geroscience, and I'm really delighted to introduce my colleague and friend, Dr. Gustavo Duque from McGill University. Dr. Gustavo Duque is a geriatrician and a biomedical scientist specializing in age-related musculoskeletal diseases, including osteoporosis, sarcopenia, and frailty. He's had many academic roles. He's the past chair of the University of Melbourne Department of Medicine. He's now come back to McGill in 2022. He became full professor and also the Dr. Joseph Kaufman Chair in Geriatric Medicine. He's the director of the Reese McGill Center of Excellence for Sustainable Health of Seniors and the Simone and Edouard Schuella Center of Excellence at McGill University. So welcome, Dr. Gustavo Duque.
Thank you, Dr. Papaioannou, for the introduction, and thank you for having me today.
Wonderful. Let's dive right in. Could you start by describing what is geroscience?
Well, geroscience, I will start with a little bit of history. This concept started in the National Institute of Aging in the United States in about 2014. The reason the concept started was because some of the research in aging, particularly in people suffering from chronic diseases, were very much focused on disease by disease. So there was a disease in cardiovascular conditions, in dementia, but suddenly or progressively, we started to understand that some of these diseases share common biological mechanisms. So it's probably the same type of things that happen in the cells of the brain could be happening at the same time in the cells of the heart, and that could be explaining both, heart failure and dementia, for instance. So based on that, it was proposed that what about if instead of looking disease by disease, we look at the mechanisms, that biological changes that are happening at the same time in different organs and systems. And the main objective was, or is still, to maybe target those mechanisms. In some sense, approaching several chronic conditions that are very frequent in older persons, just by approaching one or two of those mechanisms. And when I say approaching the mechanisms, I want to just to make clear that at the beginning we were approaching just the biological mechanisms, but after we understood them very well, now we are moving more into developing new therapies or new approaches to try to target not just one disease, but several at the same time.
That's fascinating. So how does geroscience relate to aging and geriatric medicine?
Well, it closely relates to aging because most of these biological things that happen, or mechanisms that I already mentioned that happen with aging and in chronic diseases, are triggered by things that only occur or mostly occur in older persons and predispose them to suffer from multiple chronic conditions. So, and that's the chronic conditions that we see as geriatricians. We see patients with multiple, what we call comorbidities, so more than two diseases. We see people who have hypertension, who have problems with their lipids. They have problems with the mobility. They have osteoarthritis. They have osteoporosis. They have muscle loss. They have dementia. So as a geriatricians, we see them all the time. So there is no doubt that in the practice of geriatric medicine, the concept of geroscience actually makes our work, or will make our work easier, because instead of treating and with 20 medications, with different, each medication for each different condition, now we are hopefully in the future going to be able to treat several conditions just with one shot, one tablet, or one intervention, because we know how to approach the basics, the biological basics of the conditions. So there is no doubt that it will be integrated into geriatric medicine soon.
Wow, these geriatric medicine doctors sound amazing. How do I find one in Canada?
Well, in Canada, is growing. Is growing, and I think that there is a very bright future for us here in Canada regarding the integration between geroscience and geriatric medicine. And one of the major steps we are making at this time, and this year particularly, is that we are implementing the Canadian Translational Geroscience Network, where clinicians will start working with biomedical scientists and clinical trialists and allied health professionals to move the geroscience out of the lab, out of the bench, into the practice and community. And I think that that's a unique opportunity for our Canadian environment.
Wonderful. So what are some key geroscience methods or frameworks?
Well, I think that in terms of the methods, it has been developed very nicely in the recent years in terms of we have the capacity to evaluate several of these, again, the biological mechanisms. We refer to them as the hallmarks of aging. There are 12 different changes in the cells that we can observe that are associated to these comorbidities in older persons. So in terms of the methods, we have enough expertise to identify what is happening in all these hallmarks of aging, identify them. Probably not, some of them we cannot evaluate already in humans, but we will soon start developing the techniques. So I think that will be important in terms of the developing of biomarkers, for instance. But we cannot forget that some of these conditions could be also identified by current methods. And I'll give you an example. There is clear association of aortic calcification, which is, the aorta becomes very stiff because a lot of calcium is deposited there. And we know now that this is an indicator. This is an important indicator, not only of arteriosclerosis and cardiovascular disease, but also a predictor of fractures and an indicator of osteoporosis, and recently associated also with the appearance of dementia. So just to give you an example, so these images that we can use to evaluate this aortic calcification will become a good biomarker from the geroscience perspective to identify not one, but 3 conditions that affect our older population.
Wow, that's amazing how fast we're progressing in medicine. Looking ahead, what future directions do you see for geroscience and aging research?
Well, I think that the future is moving into clinical trials. So first developing drugs and type of medications or interventions that target several hallmarks of aging. And it's happening. So it's not the future, it's the present. There are several ongoing clinical trials and drugs that are specifically targeting these hallmarks of aging. So the future, I think, is we are reaching the point where we are going to do, and Canada will be hopefully very much involved on this. We will conduct some clinical trials where we're going to test these new medications in Canadians and older Canadians and identify which one of them work, which one of them don't work. That's probably the main component of the future. And the second main component is to integrate geroscience, as we are going today, integrate geroscience into clinical practice and also into education. And this is a mission that we have as geroscience and geroscientists, I would say, is to integrate this concept that is very novel into our colleagues, geriatricians, into our trainees, and also in the community as a whole.
Thank you. That has been fascinating, hearing the latest from one of the world experts on geroscience. Thank you, Dr. Gustavo Duque. And I encourage those who are listening to go to our 2 websites, and they'll keep you up to date, both at McGill and here at Geros Center for Aging Research at HHS, Hamilton Health Sciences, and McMaster University. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Duque.
Thank you very much for having me.